Hello and welcome to the Kansas City User Group for March 1st, 2022. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here a little bit early, starting a little bit earlier than our normal time, but we still have a decent set of folks here, and I'm sure we'll get many more rolling in once we hit 11 o'clock and people realize they're late. I am Jeff Berger. I'm the VP and Director of Salesforce Operations here at Academy Bank, aka Armed Forces Bank, aka Dickinson Financial Corporation here in downtown Kansas City, Missouri. And also here, our fearless co-leader, Dale Ziegler, Senior Business Analyst with 7 Summit. Say hi, Dale.
Hi, Dale.
Excellent.
I follow directions.
Bumps that spike. That's right. That email address down there at the bottom, if you're new to the group, that is a great way to get in touch with us. When you send an email to kansascity.us-user@trailblazercgl.com, that comes directly to both Dale and I. So if you're looking for help, if you have questions, and you are not yet in the user group itself, don't hesitate to reach out with that email. As you heard at the top of this call, if you were on the call, we are recording this meeting. So if you are not comfortable with being recorded or you're not allowed to be recorded, please drop out now. We will save this recording and get it posted, and we will share that posted recording in the user group and usually on LinkedIn as well. So if you can't be recorded or you're not comfortable, feel free to drop. You can still get all the great content, hopefully by the end of the day. We're starting early, right, Dale? So it'll definitely be up by the end.
No pressure.
Also, I'm sure we're all familiar with this and comfortable with this at this point, but if you're not speaking, please mute yourself and do us a favor and make sure your real name is used as a WebEx participant, especially if you're going to jump in and ask a question or provide any commentary. Obviously, that's professional, but also it really helps us. We try to keep track of who's attending, who said they were going to attend, who didn't make it. And if you can help us out by making sure your WebEx name is accurate, that'll help us check you in on the back end as we manage this event. Thank you. Big thanks to our sponsor, OwnBackup. We are going to be raffling off a pair of AirPods today. So I'm going to pause here for a second. Dale is dropping a form in the chat, but here's the URL. It's bit.ly/OB-raffle. Don't forget capitalization matters with those bit.ly links. So feel free to jump in and drop your contact info in order to be eligible to win. I'm jealous I can't participate because I want that little case that says OwnBackup. We have a Slack channel, so if you aren't already in our Slack channel, use that email address I referenced earlier. Send us an email, we'll get you added. It's I wouldn't say it's super lively, but every once in a while we get some really interesting dialogue, especially when things like release readiness is going on or when somebody runs into trouble. So it's a great sort of SOS if you're looking for help and you need some immediate engagement. Send us an email, we'll get you added. We'd love to get some more engagement on there. We are currently in the user group, the general group here in Kansas City. That's where you are right now. We do have some other groups, some more active than others. You can check all the groups out at bit.ly/KCTBC. Again, remember capitalization matters with those bit.ly links. And you'll be able to follow or subscribe to those groups and get notifications when events are posted. This is a great opportunity. Anybody want to speak to any of these other groups? I don't know if we have any other leaders on the call from these groups or anybody who's interested in engaging in those groups. Please feel free to jump in and speak up. Going once.
I don't see any names that I would recognize as leaders, but
I
know the devs have been working on something as conditions get easier for meeting. I know there was a thread in the marketing group of trying to get things going again. So there is some ball movement on that.
Awesome. Great insight. Thanks, Dale. Please, if you haven't already, jump to that bit.ly link, bit.ly/KCTBC, and make sure that you're at least signed up for this group so you get notifications about when our meetings are coming up. On April 19th is our next meeting. We're going to have prodly.co, and we might need a second presenter. So if you are interested in presenting, whether that's something cool that you built that you want to share with the group, or maybe you want to talk about, the latest release. Maybe you want to talk about anything else that's passionate, near and dear to your heart. Fill out that speaker interest form. And maybe Dale could drop that in the chat for us because I know when we first started putting that out there, we got some interest. It sort of died down a little bit, but we're always looking to make these meetings interesting and engaging for the team, and we can't do that without your help. So let us know what you want to hear and volunteer. Any other user group leaders or attendees from outside Kansas City? I know the answer to that question, but feel free to pipe up and share who you are and where you're from.
Hi, it's Terry from the Des Moines user group. It's nice to pop in once in a while and see you guys.
Always great to have you here.
Love having you.
All right. Cool. Moving on. I didn't see any names that I recognize, but any Salesforce employees on the call? Dale does such a great job of inviting them every time, and they don't always come, but every once in a while, get a Salesforce employee.
I'm looking at the list and not seeing any, but
Yeah, I didn't see anybody I recognize. Maybe next time.
Yep.
All right. This is my favorite slide. Dale knows that it's my favorite slide. Any first-time attendees? Is this your first time here at the Kansas City User Group? Feel free to jump in the chat if you don't want to unmute, but we'd love to have you say hi. Hi, Jennifer. Welcome.
Hi,
Good to have you.
Jennifer.
Anybody else? Cool. Okay, well, thank you for being here. Todd, great to have you.
Yep, thank you.
Rakesh, awesome, all the way from India. That's probably the farthest we've had so far, so that's great.
Stick a thumbtack on the world map. Yep.
That's right. Yeah. Excellent. That is one of the benefits of doing these virtually, right, Dale? I mean, it's great, obviously, to connect and engage with our local users, but being able to do these virtually, we'd be able to pull in from, the region and even internationally and get to meet.
Absolutely. I mean, India, we've had the Netherlands, we've had, I think we've had Belgium, obviously UK, we've had a few times. It's definitely a silver lining to all the other not so great things of the last few years.
That's right. It's a good way to say it. Anybody who wants to shout out a new role that they've taken on or a new job that they've started? We love to celebrate the success of our team here in Kansas City. Anybody want to shout out a promotion or? Okay. The other side of that coin is job openings to share. So we've got one highlighted here, or two highlighted here. Sal Alberto has a Salesforce product owner with One Digital. We've got Homebase.ai is looking for an admin. Anybody on the call want to speak to either of those or shout out another opportunity?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. My name's Rob Manning. I'm with UMB Bank, and I have it on good authority that we're going to have a Salesforce admin developer role open in 2 weeks.
Excellent.
Something like that.
If you get a link to that job posting, share it out, send it to us, and we can get it out.
Okay, yeah. I will as soon as I have it. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, please post that in the group.
And UMB has always had a really good team. I've from people who work there and have worked there, I've heard nothing but good things. So.
Okay. All right. I think that's enough time. Any new certifications or attempts that folks want to share? Oh, Terry says Amazon Care just reached out to me.
Whoa.
That's interesting.
That's kind of a big name.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Terry. Always appreciate a link. Any certifications or certification attempts? Anybody who wants to share their passes or failures?
I finally passed UX designer.
Hey, that's exciting. What? How many times? How many tries?
It was my second try.
Nice.
And what really nailed it for me was there is a trail mix.
Nice.
Like actually put out by Salesforce on Trailhead. And that dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's on SLDS and contrasts and testing methodology. So that was definitely what got me over the line.
That's great. Congrats. And Prakash, I think I saw you just passed
Data architect.
Or architects. That's exciting. That's
Very
great.
nice.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's a good one. Cool. I know we have Mr. Study Group on the call. Terry, any study groups we want to talk about or highlight? Who's studying for what?
I've got a admin study group running right now.
Awesome.
This will be our. I'll have to actually leave this meeting early to get over to that one, but yeah, I think we've got 8 or 9 people studying along this time around.
Great. I know people who have gone through those study groups and found them incredibly valuable. So thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun to do.
Brandon, thank you. And currently studying for Service Cloud Consultant. Awesome.
Very cool.
Definitely dive deep into entitlements and milestones and a lot of those process-oriented things if you haven't already. And good luck on that one in about a month, and come back in April and let us know how you did.
Yeah. That's great. I know I tend to linger here because it's just my favorite, but we can move on. Somebody challenged me to do one. I haven't done a new cert in forever, so I need to do one. That's I'm gonna put it out here on the recording. I'm gonna have something to share next time. So
what I'm gonna do, since we're putting this on YouTube,
that's right.
I'm gonna timestamp exactly when you said that, and that's
yes.
what I put on LinkedIn and Twitter and
yes. Hold me accountable, Dale. It's been way too long since I've done a new cert, so I gotta get off this 6 hump that I've been sitting on forever. So. All right, let's keep on trucking because I know we've got a lot of great content to get to today. Other community resources and events. I love this page too. I feel like this page gets longer every time we work on it, which is awesome. Just speaks to how much amazing content is being put out there by community members like y'all. MVP office hours, first third Friday of every month. Next one is this Friday at 1 o'clock. The bit.ly link is there. Dale, any special guests this Friday? Who do you got this week?
Well, so we're not doing the special guest route anymore. It's
okay.
Bring your questions, bring your issues. Like we'll dive in as deep as we can to try to help you right there. And if we can't help you on the spot, we'll take it offline. I do actually want to put Terry on the spot here because he has spun up an office hours of his own that I did not get into the deck, but I think it's hugely worthwhile given the current state of Salesforce.
Yeah, so we're doing a office hours specifically around flow, and it is, I think it's the 3rd Friday of every month. I might have that wrong. You can go to flowofficehours.com, I think is right. I'll put it in the chat if I have that wrong, but I think that's right.
Awesome.
Yeah, flowofficehours.com.
Flowofficehours.com. Okay, great. Thank you, Terry. And Dale, yeah, couldn't echo that sentiment more. Right now is the time. If you've been hesitating to learn Flow, don't hesitate any longer. And Terry's your, great resource to learn that stuff from or ask questions. So thanks for doing that, Terry. And thanks for making that happen for the community. World tours and other Salesforce events. Link is there. I know we've got Trailhead. What are they calling it now? Is it still Trailhead DX? What is it called? I don't know. They keep
Trailhead DX, Salesforce Aloha, S Objects, Quick Create DX.
Yeah, something like that. That's coming up soon. I'm sure you've all been getting bugged in your email about it, but definitely check it out. I'm not going to go through all these links, but I do want to call out the certification prep weeks. Has anybody done one of the certification prep weeks on here? Yeah, I see a hand raised. You want to speak? I haven't done it myself, but if you want to speak to it, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, and sort of share your experience with it.
I don't mind at all. I've gone to a couple different ones, just listened in mostly.
Yeah.
I found them to be helpful whether I'm taking a cert or not. So I think it's just good information to know, good to be able to, put that time aside to actually do it.
Yeah. That's such a great point, right? It's about making time for yourself and getting something on the calendar that can hold you accountable, right? Because if you don't, it doesn't happen. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Idea exchange prioritization is the other thing. Use your voice. If you aren't familiar with what idea exchange prioritization is, be sure to you can jump in and actually set up to get notified when the prioritization goes live. So even if we aren't actively prioritizing right now, make sure that you get yourself signed up for those notifications, because the window isn't very long when they have the prioritization open. So be sure to jump in and let Salesforce know what we need them working on, because if we don't tell them, they won't know. Certification days, a lot of TBA on this list, but again, just be sure to sign up. We've got some resources here if you're interested in engaging on any of these. And actually, I see one on this list that I might have to sign up for. So maybe that'll be my setup.
Yeah, so I just checked this yesterday. Definitely in a dry spell on the US side of things. There are a handful of UK, or Greenwich Mean based. The only US one I can find is in Spanish. So if you speak Spanish and want to take one of those, absolutely look into it. But I would imagine here in the next week or two, once the dust has fully settled on spring release and all of that, they'll get a lot more on the calendar.
Awesome. So yeah, follow on the community to make sure you get the latest and greatest. Don't forget your certification maintenance. Speaking of certs, right? Getting them is great. Losing them is bad. So make sure that you're paying attention to those maintenance modules. I think they've done a better job of making sure that we're in the know with those automated emails. But just remember, due date April 8th here for this next round. Obviously, admin is a big one. So make sure that you're getting those done if you haven't already.
And just to add on to that first row there for Platform App Builder, PD1, all of those are also available to go take. I mean, it doesn't take more than 15, 20 minutes. So go do them as soon as they're out there. I'd say for any of these, it's no more than a week or two after that deadline that the next one is out. So just keep your eyes peeled on it, and it's the easiest way to stay on top of it.
Yeah, definitely. And you're just going to be more successful the closer to the release and the closer to when all the content is being generated around the topics that they're measuring, right? Like, these maintenance modules tend to have some content that's pretty niche to that release, right? So make sure that you're jumping in on that sooner rather than later, because you let that info get stale or get covered up by other stuff in future releases, and it'll be a little bit more challenging. So don't wait, right? This is available back on April 14th, 2021, right? So if you haven't done it yet, make this be the last time that you're waiting this long. And Flow resources, right? We alluded to it earlier. Flow is now. Flow is not the future. Flow is the present. And so if you are not a Flownatic yet, if you're not super familiar with Flow, there are some great resources out there, including the one that we didn't get to include on this list with Terry's office hours. But go check out these recordings from the St. Louis user groups hands-on series. I don't know if anybody else on the call has had a chance to check these out, but pretty cool set that they did here to help folks really get the basics of Flow. And then on 3/17, the Des Moines user group is going to have their Lunch and Learn series covering Flow best practices. So if in a couple of weeks you're looking for more Flow content, make sure to go out and register now. Comments on either of these things? I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to check out the St. Louis stuff, but pretty good.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that too. But for the Des Moines user group, Michelle Hansen will be our guest speaker for that one, and we'll be presenting those best practices for us. So.
Awesome.
And I work with Michelle now at IBM. I go to her
Yeah.
for my Flow stuff on client stuff. She's
pretty good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Good stuff. All right, today's agenda. We're going to start with OwnBackup, Todd Barry and Graham Russell, why you must act to protect your mission-critical Salesforce data. So without further ado, I think I will stop sharing my screen and let y'all take over. Does that sound like a plan?
Very much sounds like a plan. Let me see if I can share my screen. There we go. That looks as if it's working. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I think that's probably the correct greeting for most people on the call, although I suspect for Prakash across in India, it's probably good evening, isn't it? But I'm Graham Russell. I'm the Market Intelligence Director here at OwnBackup. Really delighted to have this opportunity to spend some time with you. I just realized from this slide that Jeff was just sharing, it sounded like a really finger-wagging title, that didn't it? Yeah, why you must act. You know, we're going to be a bit more relaxed about it in the session that we're going to run. But let me just introduce a couple of other people first of all. Jeannie, are you there? Can you unmute yourself and just introduce yourself to the group, please?
Hey guys, Jeannie Koo with OwnBackup. I'm an account executive, and although I physically am located in the Bay Area, Dale and Jeff have been so welcoming in allowing folks from outside of the Kansas and Missouri area to join the user group. So I joined on a session back in, I think it was November, if I remember correctly, Dale. And it was a very auspicious start because I ended up winning the raffle too. So I was like, I definitely need to stick with this crew. So anyways, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm repping Kansas. My last name is actually spelled KU. So I have, gosh, for many years, since I was a itty bitty kid, I've always been behind the Jayhawks. So anyways, hopefully there are a lot of Jayhawk fans on the call, but I did get to go to a game in December. Actually, a colleague of mine, Austin Rohr, is on the call too, and he shuttled me to Allen Fieldhouse. So I got to check one of those boxes off my bucket list. So I've loaded up on my KU gear and I'm super excited to be here.
Thanks, Jeannie. Well, and again, thank you to you for looping me into this opportunity. I'm glad to be here as well. So, Graham Russell, Market Intelligence Director at OwnBackup, joined the company in November 2020. Been part of the Salesforce ecosystem since 2015, having worked at a different ISV prior to this. So that ISV built all of their solutions natively on the Force.com platform. And of course, we'll tell you a little bit more about OwnBackup in a moment. But Todd, are you there? How about you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, everyone. I'm Todd Barry. I am a certified Salesforce admin going on 15 years now. I work at a company called Magellan Health in Connecticut. Been their admin for 15 years. I'm also the Connecticut admin user group leader. So I've been pretty much, in this space for 15, 16 years. Unfortunately, going with the basketball theme, I'm an old school Big East guy. I'm a UConn guy, so I spend most of my time either at UConn or at Madison Square Garden watching the Big East tournament.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Todd.
It's basketball, not soccer. That's why.
Oh, there we go. It's an alien sport for this Scotsman. But Todd, we really appreciate you being here and being part of this as well. So the session that we've got lined up here is, I'm going to maybe take 10 minutes or so to try and set the scene around why it's so important to protect your Salesforce data. I'm going to share some research with you around what's happening out there in the real world, who is protecting their data, what results are they getting, but more importantly, who isn't, and what are the challenges around that. And that'll maybe take us the first 10 minutes or so. Then we're going to cut away from that. And actually from there, it's just going to be a conversation between myself and Todd. Now, Todd's been an OwnBackup customer for a couple of years, but as he's just explained, stack of experience in working within Salesforce and with Salesforce. So he's got lots of interesting views and perspectives and indeed guidance and advice to share with the group, which I hope will be useful. We're really keen to keep this pretty relaxed. So there should be time at the end for questions. There definitely will be. But equally, if there's questions as we go, just use the chat box. Jeannie's going to keep an eye on that for us and won't hesitate to chip in at relevant points if there are questions that we need to address or points to explore. So you don't need to stack them up. You can if you want, though. We're going to keep that going. So let's get started with this. So I suspect, or I would hope, that most people on this call are aware of the shared responsibility model, but it still surprises me when I encounter people within the Salesforce ecosystem, especially admins, who look at me blankly around that. One of the things I do here at OwnBackup is I run a program of research, and it means that every week I get to speak to maybe 4 or 5 new OwnBackup customers, or indeed sometimes it's 1 or 2 prospects who've been looking at OwnBackup but have decided to go in a different direction. And that win-loss research is really useful for us. We get lots of insights. And I always ask, What was it that prompted you to evaluate OwnBackup? What took you to the market? And to this day, I'm still surprised when at least 2 of those calls a week, my respondent will say, actually, just kind of assumed that everything was backed up and secure and recoverable if we had a data emergency issue. And I was slightly alarmed to find out that that wasn't the case. So that's why I'm starting with the shared responsibility model, because it's pretty straightforward, isn't it? You've got Salesforce saying we're taking responsibility for various aspects of protecting the network, the infrastructure. But you, as a Salesforce customer, have some responsibilities as well. And your responsibilities are more around protecting the data and the information that you're putting into Salesforce and that you're using within that. So both parties have some responsibility for the protection of the data and the security of the platform. But it's a problem because, as I just mentioned, lots of organizations, lots of people out there are blithely unaware of this. Now, we every year conduct a big research study about Salesforce data protection. And in the most recent year, we commissioned Forrester, the analyst and research firm, to do the research. They spoke to 1,150 people as part of the most recent study. Now, they weren't all Salesforce users, but 50% were. The other 50% were using other CRM and SaaS platforms like Microsoft Dynamics and so on. But these were people in their organizations with responsibility for their CRM and for the applications that they were using. We've got an ebook with all of the results, and we can happily share that with Dale and Jeff afterwards, and they might forward it on to the group if you want to see all of the results. I'm going to highlight just a couple of findings. And the first is that these business and IT leaders, that many of them just make that assumption that their data is protected and recoverable. So we asked this question: who's responsible for protecting the information kept in your organization's CRM, so that if there was a data loss or some kind of corruption incident, you could recover it? And look at the number, 40%, 4 out of 10 said, well, it's the vendor. It's up to Salesforce or Microsoft or whoever. You know, it's on them. It's up to them to do it. So there's a certain kind of denial or lack of awareness about responsibility there. We asked that 40% who are unaware of their responsibilities about the extent to which they agreed or disagreed with the statement that data stored in the cloud is automatically backed up. I hope you're sitting down, because 81% agreed with the statement. So as we've all rushed to the cloud, some of us from a few more years ago than others, but there's this kind of sense that, well, if it's in the cloud, it's all just kind of magically backed up and recoverable, and we don't need to worry about that. But of course, that's not really a reality. There's this false sense of security around it. So are data losses for Salesforce, are they an issue? And if so, why? So we asked our respondents, has your organization suffered a SaaS data loss or corruption? Look at the numbers there. 3/4 said that yes, in the past year, they had suffered at least a loss or corruption of some kind. And that's strange here. This is just the respondents who were actually aware of their data protection responsibilities. 3 out of 4 respondents. I think that's really staggering. Now, of course, the scale and the nature of those losses, they'll vary. For some, it might be a record, or somebody overwrote a couple of fields. For others, on the other end of the spectrum, far more significant, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of records affected. So it can be fairly inconsequential, but more typically, there is some pain and some impact on the CRM team and Salesforce admins in terms of trying to understand what went wrong, and then more importantly, get that data back into the live production org. So what are the catalysts of data losses and corruptions? There's 3 main drivers. First, it's cyber attacks. I suspect I don't need to labour this. We're all familiar with what's going on there and the increase in those attacks. Secondly, is human error. Now, this is the one that's on the up. Nobody really is going out to deliberately lose or corrupt their own data, unless you've got a particularly nefarious colleague, but that's unusual. But actually, it's just a case of fat fingering, or something's gone wrong, and we've been moving some data or adding some data or looking to delete some data or archive it, and then there's been a mistake. Then the third thing is around rogue add-on applications. Now, it's not that the applications are rogue, but the process of making those integrations, something goes wrong again, and data can be lost or corrupted. And it happens all the time. We at OwnBackup, we've got over 4,000 customers, and we were talking at our sales kickoff event recently that we have resolved over 1,000 data loss or corruption incidents for our customers. So this is customers, they're using our solutions to protect their data, and they've picked up the phone to say, something's happened. We've lost data. Can you help us? And of course we do, and we get the data back, and all is good. But please believe me that that the causes of data loss and corruption are prevalent and very real. So if data losses and corruptions are a fact of life, they're going to happen. We also asked our respondents, well, did you recover from that? I think, again, these results are eye-opening because only 11% managed to get all of their data back. Now, some of those, they'll have just given up. They'll said, actually, the cost and the pain and the time required to restore our data, the data itself is not worth it. We're just going to have to suffer it. Others put in lots of time and effort. They're trying to use their CSV files to restore data, but only 11% got it all back. So data losses are commonplace, and they're rarely fully resolved. Let's look at the options available from Salesforce, because of course this has changed recently, but essentially there are four. You've got the weekly export, which has been there for quite some time. So you have your slot once a week when you can go in and you can download your CSV files. So that's perfectly fine. It ticks a backup box. The problem there is if you ever need to recover data from those CSV files, because it's painful, it's laborious, it's time consuming, and it's difficult. And you're on your own. There's nobody to pick the phone up to say, can you help me with this? So, and of course, if you don't make that download your exports at the relevant time, then you've lost that window. And of course, you have to store those backups somewhere. So that opens up a security vulnerability, but at least it's there, it's an option. Options 2 and 3, you can export data, similar CSV files to your own data warehouses, but again, the challenges there around how you recover if you have a loss or corruption. At least you've got the data, that's something. Similar with Sandbox Refresh, but that only refreshes every 30 days. So that's fine if you're happy to rewind your data 30 days. It also means though that you overwrite your good, healthy data. And usually with losses and corruptions, it's just some data that's gone, some data that you need to restore, not everything. So you want to find a way of making sure you just address the gaps, the issues, whilst keeping your good and healthy data there. And then more recently, the fourth option is backup and restore. You're probably aware Salesforce had the data recovery service, which they retired a couple of years ago, briefly bought it back. They've retired it again because they now have Salesforce Backup and Restore, which is a backup and recovery application. Now, we're really pleased at OwnBackup that it exists because there's a lot of noise and a lot of focus around backup and recovery, and that can only be a good thing. Our mission is to ensure no customers ever lose data in the cloud, and so Salesforce is really helping with that rallying call and the attention given to this. The solution itself is fairly immature, and Salesforce themselves would say and accept that. There are some challenges with it, one of which is it backs up your Salesforce data, but it doesn't back up things like files or attachments or metadata. Now there's roadmap plans, and so I'm sure some of those gaps will be addressed in future. But at present, it's not particularly mature, not particularly robust. There's another challenge around that as well, which is the way it's priced. It's not encouraging you to keep your backups and keep your data. And indeed, there's pressures. The bigger your files and the bigger the price is, because it's based on those data volumes. Now, that's not healthy, because you don't know when that data loss will have been and how far back you need to go. Is another challenge. And I think the final one, which comes down to data protection best practices, which is, whilst the backup and restore files from Salesforce are saved in AWS, the only way to access them is through Salesforce. So what happens in that worst case scenario, and it's Salesforce that's down? Salesforce has the outage. You're locked out of your backup files. You can't get them, and that's that's another challenge around the solution. Now, there's lots of good things about Salesforce Backup and Restore, so I'm not just going to be critical of it. I'm glad that it exists, and certainly glad that there's some noise around it. But be aware that there are some challenges with all of these native options with Salesforce. So OwnBackup, and I've got 2 slides of a sales pitch, and then I'm not promoting us anymore. We have a suite of solutions, including backup and recovery. We can help to seed your sandboxes for your developers, so they're always working on fresh data that can be anonymized to support compliance as they're developing on the Force.com platform. We can help you with archiving your Salesforce data. The benefits of that are, again, about compliance. You keep the data that you have to. You don't keep the data that you don't have to. You can see improved system performance And of course, you're not pressured into buying more and more storage from Salesforce. And then last of all is OwnBackup Secure, which is a solution that helps you to identify data vulnerabilities and security risks within your live Salesforce production org and to take action to remediate those. So we'd be glad to talk to any of you, Jeannie in particular, around any of those solutions and options. We, as I mentioned, I've got well over 4,000 customers, 450 app exchange reviews, 98% of them I think are 5 stars. So we're pretty well positioned. Indeed, Salesforce is one of our investors. We had our latest Series E funding round about 4 months ago, and they valued the company at that point US dollars 3.2 billion. So we're delighted to have that relationship and that partnership with Salesforce. So I hope that I've established why we're having this conversation today, why it's important to protect your mission critical data within Salesforce. But I think it's important that I stop talking and we get to hear from Todd. Todd is your subject matter expert in the room today, who can share with you his experience and his thoughts and views around data protection when it comes to Salesforce. Let me stop sharing my screen and bring Todd into it. Todd, are you there?
I'm here.
Todd, I wondered if you could start with just maybe tell us about Magellan Health and the organization's use of Salesforce.
Sure. Like Grim said, I work for a company called Magellan Health. I always joke we're one of the biggest insurance companies you've never heard of. And one of the reasons for that is we are mental health and behavioral health benefits. And we actually sell our insurance to other health plans. And then our benefits are riders to your health plan benefits. So we sell to the Blues, the Anthem. I don't know if you've seen the news. My company's recently purchased by Centene, so now part of a bigger insurance conglomeration. But basically, we have 3 lines of business. We sell directly to health plans that sell our coverage as riders on their medical. We do employee direct business where we sell EAP products to employers, and then we do a lot of mental health management for state and federal governments. So those are 3 kind of areas of expertise in the insurance area.
Thank you, Todd.
Sizing Magellan is probably around 10, 11,000 employees right now. That was before the Centene acquisition. And we pretty much are represented in every state across the United States.
So pretty significant organization. Tell us about your use of Salesforce, though. So how important is Salesforce within the organization and technology stack? And where is it most used? Is it within sales? Is it marketing? Maybe just elaborate on those first, please.
So it's mostly a sales and account management tool. I actually was hired by the company back in 2007. They had just purchased Salesforce. They didn't know what to do with it. It was a standalone application. So I said, let's use it out of the box the way it's supposed to be used. Let's use it for pipeline management. So we originally used it as for all our deal management across all the divisions of the company. We did that for about 3 or 4 years. Used the basic out of the box functionality, accounts, contacts, opportunities, reports, and dashboards. After a couple of years of proving its value in the sales streams, then we moved over to the account management side of the house. It was the next logical progression. Once we made the sale, let's manage the sale inside Salesforce. So we brought it in, did some customizations, built a few custom objects, but still use the same functionality: accounts, contacts, opportunities, reports, and dashboards. After about 5 years of really getting the tool ingrained in sales and account management, I'm not going to say I got bored. I got a little antsy and said, where else can I use the tool? So then I decided to just kind of, venture out and, just kind of demo the tool across the company. Long and short of it is, I was able over the past, 10 years, I've built custom applications for the HR team that are managed on Salesforce. We had a couple of where we did some community outreach projects in different communities. We built an application on that to manage community outreach interactions. So it just kind of grew through growth and shrinkage of the company. Some of those applications are still in play. Some of them are no longer in play. But to this day, our core functionality has always been sales and account management, pipeline management. That's where we really shine. And some of you will take offense to this, some of you won't. I'm lucky enough that I've always been in a business role and not an IT environment. So the benefit is I'm fast, agile, and dynamic, which is great. I get to make changes. I get to do it on the fly, which is the way I work. But on the flip side, we don't have that IT support. So when it came to backup, recovery, restore, questions, IT's like, you're not with us, so figure it out yourself. So there's a lot of times we had to go and find third-party applications to meet different needs, and that's kind of in certain of the processes and research, that's how we came across working with OwnBackup.
So I haven't been fast, agile, or dynamic since the 1980s, but actually, we probably should not get into that. That's an entirely different story. But I would love you to share with the group that process of what prompted you to look at backup and recovery, and ended up in that journey with you signing up with OwnBackup, because I suspect that on the call we will have some people who will have backup and recovery processes and plans in place, and that is great. There will be others where that won't be the case. So what was your journey to OwnBackup?
Sure. Like any good Salesforce admin evangelist, I bought into Salesforce hook, line, and sinker, and I'd say for about 95% of it, that's good. Every once in a while, you do need to question things. But one of the things I did buy into was the backup and recovery feature. Like I said, back in 2007, when I started it, my admin told me, or I'm sorry, my account manager told me all about weekly exports. They were, my lifesavers. So that's what I did. I did my weekly exports. And every week I downloaded my weekly export and I put it on a shared drive, and I've got hundreds of zip files that sat out there, and it's great. Then probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I was at Dreamforce, killing time. I went down to the trade show to talk to some of the vendors, and I just happened to be talking to someone from OwnBackup. It was giving me their spiel, and I wasn't really listening from a purchasing perspective. I was listening like, oh, maybe they could be presented in my user group. And we're just talking back and forth, having a really good conversation. But something caught me that the gentleman said, and he said something about, have you tried to restore data from your weekly exports? And I said, no, thank God. I've never had to do it. It's been fantastic. He's like, you should try it sometime. I said, okay, humor him, no big deal. Went on from Dreamforce. Maybe a couple weeks later, I was working on a project. Back then, there was a great piece of software that was called, I think it was Excel Connector, where I could take down data from, Salesforce, manipulate in Excel, push it back up. So I said, what the heck, I'm going to take this person up on their challenge. So I was working in the sandbox, and I deleted a bunch of accounts. And I said, all right, let me just restore them from one of my weekly exports. And accounts went in fine. I'm like, I don't know what the issue is. This is perfect. So I'm like, well, let's just keep going. Let's do all my child objects. Let's do accounts and contacts. I'm sorry, let's do contacts and opportunities. And that's where I hit my first snag, because the first thing I noticed when I started putting my contacts in, they weren't aligning. And it took me a little while to do some research, but what I finally figured out is when you restored an export, even to the sandbox, Salesforce changed all the account IDs. So those unique 15-digit IDs were no longer there. They got new 15-digit IDs, which in a world was like, okay, that's great, except when you got to relate all those child objects. And that's where it finally kind of hit like, wow, this is an issue, because I'm just trying to do 100 records, 100 accounts, maybe 200 contacts, 20 opportunities. I'm like, I don't have time to upload a file and then reassign all the IDs to all the child objects. And then I've got to figure out, okay, so if I've got to change on the accounts, right, so that means I got to do accounts and all the child objects, activities, opportunities. And if I do contacts, I got to redesign or rematch all their IDs to opportunities and opportunity roles and activities. This isn't going to work. So that's where I really started to figure out, okay, so weekly exports are a backup of the data, but they're not a restorable functionality of the data. So a couple of weeks after that, I had the OwnBackup gentleman come present at my user group, and that really started the conversation. Like, okay, I need a true backup recovery tool. And then through the conversations, I learned about 2 other tools that I use a lot, which are Sandbox Seeding and Anonymizer, which is great because if anybody that works with Sandbox, you get that one full Sandbox backup. After that, you may get a partial, but it's all devs. Devs are great. But if I've got, either I'm working on a project or consulting is working on a project, I don't have time to start creating a bunch of test data. And if it's if it's a local developer or US developer, I can kind of give them my data. But if it's an offshore developer, now I've got to anonymize all my data. So those 2 features, the Sandbox Seeding from OwnBackup and then the data anonymization, really help seal the deal. Like, this is a good holistic solution for us and one that we want to pursue.
Excellent. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased that was the experience and the way you've just articulated that, Todd. And I mentioned earlier on those win-loss interviews that I do. So I did one on Friday with a new OwnBackup customer who I can't name because I don't have the authority to do that, but there are a manufacturing business headquartered in North America, in the US. And their reason for coming to look for a backup and recovery solution was they'd been using Salesforce CPQ, they'd been making some pricing updates, and they weren't quite sure what they did, but they lost a bunch of data. So a real life data loss scenario. It took 4 people 2 weeks to fix it. So that's the challenge. We often say within OwnBackup, backup, whisper it, backup's pretty straightforward. There's lots of ways of backing up your data, doing it in a way that you can easily restore or recover it in those worst case scenarios when something's gone wrong. That's really the key, which is why we call the product OwnBackup Recover. It's not backup for a reason. So going back, Todd, to that time, how difficult was it to get budgetary approval? Because that can be a challenge for many people working in the Salesforce ecosystem and system admins, whether they're going to business leaders or whether they're going to IT leaders, being able to get that budget to invest in a solution. What was your process? What guidance would you give the team?
I have to say I lucked out. The old saying, the timing is everything, is perfect. During a couple of years ago, we went through a change. We started offloading a lot of our IT resources and doing, some third-party help desk support. And I kind of took advantage of that. Like I said, I'm in a business unit, on IT unit, said, hey, while you guys are offloading and reconfiguring, I really want to make sure my data is secure. You guys are busy with all these other things. I've got a couple of solutions. I lied. I only had one. I didn't do a lot of research. And said, I've got one that's worth a look. And I said, it gives us that backup recovery, and it gives us some extra functionality. And I talked to a couple of people in the business side who were all gun ho for it. The real catch is trying to get IT to sign off on it. So I had a couple of conversations with them, and they said, hey, we're not going to take it on. You're independent, so do whatever you want. So with the moving of resources out, external to Magellan, the fact that I didn't really lead with Salesforce's backup restore is not the greatest thing in the world, but I said there was better. Between that, the price point, the extra features we got with, like I said, the sandbox seeding, the anonymizer, archiver, it really was an easy sell for us. And I labeled it one way during one of my proposals, and it's stuck ever since. I said it's the best insurance policy I have because I never have to use it. Knock on wood. But it's been fantastic, and I think it was a pretty easy sell, especially in this day and age, with data loss recovery. Like I said, you can't emphasize enough. At the time, Salesforce backed up the data; they didn't recover it, and that was really important to make sure that being outside the IT org, that we had our own way to do that because we were going to be on our own. I do remember, must have been maybe 3 years ago. There was it was just before we got OwnBackup. There was a large, somebody may be affected. It was a Pardot outage for 7 days. And
Permageddon, wasn't it? Wasn't that what it was called?
What's that?
Wasn't it called Permageddon?
It was something like that. But basically, they'd made an update, and it flowed through to your Salesforce instance if you're a Pardot user, and changed everybody's access rights to all the objects. Yep. It was, and I remember that after 3 days of an outage, Salesforce solution was, all right, just create one universal profile for all your users right now. Give them all the access they can have right now until we can get those profiles back. And it was funny, after all that had happened and we were out for about 7 days, I had friends who were out for 8 or 9. I remember talking to the OwnBackup team, and they said, hey, if you had backed up, or you had OwnBackup and you had backed up all those profiles and all that metadata, we probably could have restored those profiles for you a lot faster than Salesforce got the solution out for. So there was just another, well, we didn't lose any data during that outage. We obviously lost time and money. We didn't lose data. That would have been another place where we could have, just done a quick restore of profile metadata and gotten all those profiles back up in line in a whole lot less time than Salesforce did.
Yeah, absolutely. We at the time, there was a lot of our existing customers were happy to have OwnBackup in place, and it certainly was. We saw our demand pipeline took a spike following that. Now that's a dreadful thing to say, isn't it? We don't want anybody to suffer data losses or corruptions. Genuinely, we don't. But equally, you've got to have the protection in place that if the worst happens, if something goes wrong, that you're protected. But Todd, you veered from the script dramatically there. What you were meant to say, by the way, was that you carefully and diligently reviewed every single option in the market and concluded that OwnBackup was by far the best offering. That's what you meant, wasn't it?
Oh yes, you're right. It was the next bullet point. My bad.
Could you just elaborate a little bit then on your experience now as an OwnBackup customer? So you've got the peace of mind that your data can be recovered if anything goes wrong. You talked about the enhancements to the development process with sandbox seeding, and then those compliance aspects about anonymization. But are there any other benefits that you would highlight or call out to the folks on the line just now?
I think the easiest piece for me was one was ease of use. It's up until about a year ago, I was the only admin in my company, so I did everything. So one of the things I liked about OwnBackup was a very easy learning curve. It was pretty easy to set it up. We back up our production instance every night. We back up our sandboxes. But I had an initial call with our, the account management and development team. You show you how to do it once. It's pretty straightforward how to do it. So I like that. I like that. I get, regular reports. I don't have to go looking for things. Hey, your backup was done. There's no errors, or your backup was done and here's an issue. It points it out to you. So I like that part. And I like the fact that, like I said, it's an insurance policy. I just know it's there. So that works great. I have been lucky enough, knock on wood, I've never had to do a full restore. It's on my list of things to do this year. I want to make sure I know how to do it. I'm actually going to do a full sandbox backup, delete the whole thing, and do the whole restore process. So I've got to do that. But I like OwnBackup for the other tools too. I spend most of my time in, I do a lot of development work. So sandboxes, sandbox seeding, data anonymization. And then archivers become a big tool for us now. Between my, as I mentioned earlier, we were acquired by our company, and just before that, we sold off a division to our company. So I've had to do a lot of archiving. We sold off a division where we built a couple, 6-table custom application, 6-object custom application, and all that data went to the other company. However, they want us to retain it for 7 years. So it's going to be nice to be able to archive those objects, kind of get them out of the purview of people, so it's not taking up space. And then getting that data offline, so it's not taking up extra storage space with Salesforce. So it's just the ease and functionality. I think we do it every 2 months now. We do every 2 months. We do check-in calls. The team has been great. They always, first thing to do, how are your backups doing? They look at my reports. They know how I'm doing before they even ask the question. They've always got the new features coming out. Everything's always top of mind and what the new products are for us. They keep us in the know. For lack of a better, you keep me informed without me having to do a whole bunch of research on my own, because there's just, as an admin, there's too much up there to keep on top of. So between the customer interaction with OwnBackup, my account management team, and the ease of use, it's been a great product for us. And I think that, Graham, you had mentioned earlier, Salesforce has kind of got their own backup solution. It's kind of progressed its weekly exports. I'd be honest, I don't know anything about it. So it's not like, they're coming, my account management team hasn't come and, top of mind to me and say, hey, let me tell you about these new features. So, I mean, for the other admins on the call, can you kind of go into a little bit more what, Salesforce does offer as opposed to that weekly export model?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, good. I'll do that. Yeah, I'll answer a question. That's a bit of role reversal right here, isn't it? So the background for anybody unaware of it, Salesforce announced in Dreamforce last year, they were introducing this backup and restore solution. It's part of Salesforce's broader focus on security, and things like Privacy Center and Salesforce Shield and so on. And they've outsourced it, so it's a fairly small team have developed it, and it kind of finally came to GA, I think, late November, and so we've certainly seen it as an organization. It's delayed quite a lot of opportunities, because of course Salesforce customers typically have a brilliant relationship with Salesforce, trust Salesforce, and are going to take a look at those solutions. What we're seeing now, though, is unfortunately the solution is just fairly young and immature. And as I mentioned earlier on, it covers your data, great, but your data isn't your Salesforce. You have your files, you've got to have your attachments, your chatter, DM, big objects, metadata, etc., etc. So at the moment, the coverage isn't great. The second issue is around scalability, I think. So and you can see this on any of the webinars Salesforce has been delivering, the use cases are a record has gone wrong, or maybe a handful of records, and you restore them one by one. But actually, what if it's 100 records, or 1,000, or a couple of thousand? So, there isn't a process with the solution just now in terms of managing that kind of requirement and the scalability. So as I said earlier on, we're happy that it's there. We think it's really great that Salesforce is making an issue and talking about the protection of data and helping customers to meet their part of the shared responsibilities. But I would encourage anybody in the call to be part of that 5% you talked about earlier on, Todd. You mentioned the 95% of everything, you're going to take it straight from Salesforce because it's good, it's robust, it's native, it's from Salesforce. But this isn't definitely an area where I'd encourage everybody to dig in ask for a full proof of concept, make sure it meets your needs and requirements, and take a look at whether it's OwnBackup or other third-party ISVs out there, and just make sure you're getting the right solution that's in place. I've got no doubt that Salesforce Backup and Restore will improve. There's functional gaps that they're on the roadmap that they will fill, but at this point in time, I think just buyer beware. Make sure you do your homework. Make sure you go through full proofs of concept. Get to test it. That's a big thing. Part of our sales process is you get 2 weeks where we'll guide you to use the tool using your own data in a sandbox. You'll have a whole list of test criteria that you agree is right for your organization, and then you get to measure up the solutions against that. So do that with the Salesforce solution as well. Would be my advice. Hey, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Just one other thing I want to point out too, Graham, I forgot to mention earlier. One of the other things I did really like about OwnBackup is being in an insurance field. We are very, we're never going to be cutting edge, but we're very secure centric. And one of the things I do remember, and I'm not allowed to be involved in this, but every one of our vendors had to go through a security process. And I have been told from our vendors, it is a very, very rigorous security review process. And I've lost many vendors because of it. It was very interesting how smooth and easy that process was when we looked at OwnBackup. So, from a back end, like I said, I don't know what they ask, and I don't know what they evaluate, but from a security model, especially being in insurance with PHI information, it was also an extra peace of mind knowing that you guys kind of, breezed through our security process, knowing that, all you checked on the box and all the data was secure. Once again, being outside that IT organization, it's one of my biggest fears every night is going to bed is, if anything ever happens to Salesforce, it's all on me. So having those extra third-party vendors, I know they're secure, gives me, a little bit, better night's sleep sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you for calling that out, Todd. I think that point around security and compliance is something I wanted to move into, because you already mentioned archiving and why you're archiving your data. But how important is the compliance piece for you as an organization? Because you've got confidential, sensitive customer data around, not just their contact information, but products purchased and the lifetime events and so on. So presumably in quite a regulated industry, there's some data you have to keep. There's some data you're not allowed to keep. So how do you manage that, and what role do we play there?
It's interesting, even though because we're sales and account management and not member centric, we don't keep any PHI in Salesforce. However, all Salesforce applications and related have to meet PHI requirements standards set forth by the government. I don't know all the acronyms for all the different levels of what it is, but we're very regulated. Our data quality and security is very regulated by the government because of PHI information. So it's very important to be secure, and I can't emphasize enough, because I'm not in an IT organization, I have to take all that ownership on. I am not a security expert. I'm not a data recovery expert. I'd like to say I'm a Salesforce admin expert. Some days I am, some days I'm not. But so to be able to find partners that can take that off my plate. And I've worked with a couple of vendors that like OwnBackup that are great. They're there to hold my hand and partner with me all the time, and have regular check-ins. And then I have a couple of vendors that once the sale is done, I never hear from them again, and until it's renewal time, and unless I log a ticket, there's no exchange. I think working with OwnBackup, they're working with your team and having those regular check-in meetings. I've always got peace of mind that my data is protected and I'm being looked out for. And I never have to worry about being educated, because you guys always bring new ideas, new concepts, new red flags to my attention. So I think it's a really good exchange back and forth. As far as archiving data, we are not a huge organization when it comes to data itself. So I'm not worried about hitting the Salesforce storage limits with my day-to-day data. But like I said, we've had instances where we've sold off divisions where we do have to hold onto data for 7 years. So those retention policies are really well. I remember before OwnBackup, I was probably about 4 or 5 years in, we had let go of someone due to performance issues. 4 years later, that person came back and sued the company. And I had to just pull through. At that time, we weren't offloading anything, but I remember having to pull through a bunch of data and getting it all together and restoring it and presenting it in documents for lawyers. With our new retention policies, it's easier now that I feel safer saying, okay, 10-year-old data, we can take that out of the system and still store it and not worry about some of these oddball requests we'll get, whether it's a legal request or a government request. So I can manage my data size and still hold on to data and have it protected.
Brilliant. Todd, I love that. Whilst you were talking there, Todd, I was just opened up the chat window. There's a whole flood of stuff in there. Really,
Yeah, I was going to jump in. I was trying to jump in, Graham, but you guys are chatting away, so I didn't want to disturb the flow.
yeah. Well, listen, let's be mindful of time, and we'll wrap this up in a couple of minutes. Jeannie, is there any questions there that you'd want to highlight to Todd and myself?
Yeah, actually, there were a few. What was kind of cool is a few people have actually talked about their own personal experiences using OwnBackup and saving the day. Let's see, Brandon V mentioned, that they're using backup and sandbox seating and it offers peace of mind. Todd Bachamp, sorry if I butchered your last name, Todd. After Permageddon, OwnBackup had them back up and running within 15 minutes.
Love that.
So, Barry, you were living a week, in Parmageddon.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah, exactly.
And nobody's wanting another Parmageddon, by the way. But outages happen and issues happen. So it's that safety net, isn't it? It's the peace of mind. Sorry, Jeannie.
Exactly.
And then the worst part of that was trying to spin that to senior management without, trying to explain what happened without trying to make Salesforce look bad as a product. So that's a tough balancing act, for 7 days. No, they're coming up. Trust me. So
Exactly.
Yeah, that 15-minute turnaround time would have been real nice.
Todd, this message is actually directed to you from Prakash. He wanted to know, he mentioned that he said that it was possible to restore Salesforce record ID, or said it's possible to restore Salesforce record ID as well. Is that correct? When you were trying to, when you're going through the restore process, is it possible to restore the Salesforce record ID?
The original Salesforce record ID with OwnBackup, yes, you can restore the original Salesforce ID. I have not been able to do it with any third party. Like I've used Data Loader, Excel Connector. Every time you do an upsert using those tools, the Salesforce, in my experience, automatically generates a new Salesforce ID and doesn't give you the option to use the old one. If anybody knows different to that, please chime in. But that's always been my experience with the tools I've used.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, I see a question in there that's caught my eye, Jeannie, if I may.
Yep.
It's also from Prakash, asking about hard deletion of records. I think it's a great question because it's an important point to note that we're all under pressure for compliance, aren't we? Those records that must be kept and retained and those that must not. And so the straight answer is yes. If you receive one of those subject requests from a customer saying, I insist that you delete all my data and remove all my records, then with OwnBackup, we can apply that to the production org, but then it also applies to all of the backup files. And if you've got our archiving solution, all of your archives as well. So in one task, then you're fully meeting your compliance obligations to remove that record and remove those data. So it's not just the production org, it goes across all the backups for however many days, weeks, months, or years that you keep. With OwnBackup, you can retain your data for 99 years if you want. So if there's a right to be forgotten request, you can apply it across the board. And to answer your question, yes, there's a hard deletion where that's required.
Brandon V asks, does OwnBackup help with metadata changes at all?
Yep. So we both back up metadata and support the restoration of that. And yes, so you can track metadata changes within your organization. Now there is a limit in terms of volumes around the track changes, but it's very rarely an issue for any customers that those volumes aren't sufficient. So short answer, yeah, we help with that.
And let's see. Prakash also mentioned that he was able to use OwnBackup when someone deleted all the time cards with time card split records, part of Financial Force PSA.
That's another interesting point because, of course, if you're using native third-party applications like Financial Force, where the content is on the Force.com platform, then we support the backup and recovery of that as well. So it's beyond just your Salesforce org, if it's fair to even call Salesforce just, but if, any of your data connected to you, that's within your org, as long as it's a native application, then we're covering that as well. Hey, listen, I think we might be at time, are we? Todd, any just any final words of wisdom or guidance or advice that you'd want to share with the team?
Sure. I think the most important thing, as an admin is to, like I said, earlier, we all buy into Salesforce and, we believe them 95% of the time. Make sure that we understand, certain things like backup is so important. I don't know the backup restore procedures, but the weekly exports, like if you're going to the backup world, they back up your data, they're not going to restore it. I mean, you're on your own, it's going to be a nightmare. So I think it's really important to understand how that is. I think the other thing too is, especially with OwnBackup, it's the ease of use that really caught my eye. If you'll permit me, 30 seconds, I'll give you this one new feature I just discovered that accidentally, but we're currently building a data mart where we're taking all our Salesforce data and putting it into a data mart, which is for reporting, which is fine. Except any admin on this call, I may have one or two objects that may have hit my 500 field record limit. So I've got to start deleting fields. If I delete a field off an opportunity object or I delete a field off an account object, my own backup keeps going. I don't have to tell OwnBackup, they keep backup the data, things keep working. Every time I delete a field off that object, I've got to call the data mart team. They have to redo their SQLs and statements. They have to adjust the column. They have to do this. It's a total nightmare on their side, and I get a lot of angry fan mail. But OwnBackup, I can make those metadata changes in the production environment. I don't have to file a whole case to get my backups changed. So they work interchangeably. So I think that's another good feature is, as your orgs get mature and you make changes, you want to have something that's flexible for that. And then I think, the third thing is, once you get a tool like OwnBackup or any tool like that, make sure you use it. Like I said, I have never done a full restores. I know it on paper it works, but I've got to make sure as an admin, I know how to do that. OwnBackup is there to help me, and I'm sure, they'll guide me through all the steps. But we buy these tools, we buy these products, and some of them some great features, and a lot of features we don't have to use or they don't necessarily need to use. But make sure you know how to use them. The last thing you want to do is get that call at Friday night at 11:30 that you got to start figuring out how to restore data, and you got to get someone to OwnBackup at the same time to figure out how to walk you through it. So once you have a tool, make sure you understand it, embrace it, and use it, practice with it.
Todd, I think that's brilliant advice. And those calls, they're never kind of Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock, are they? It's always Friday night or worse, holiday weekends when somebody says, "Oh, where's all my opportunities gone?" or something like that. But we should wrap up. Todd, thank you so much for being part of this, for sharing your experience and your guidance and wisdom. I hope, I'm sure it's been useful for the folks on the call just now. I'd also quite like to thank Dale and Jeff for the opportunity for us to be part of this and to share our thinking. And with that, I'll pass it back to you. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Graham and Todd and Jeannie. This is not the first time OwnBackup has sponsored the Kansas City user group. You all are repeat sponsors, and every time you have come to us with a slightly more enhanced perspective of the same thing. You just continue to grow and grow from there. And so that's great that you give back to all of us. But I put in the chat, I mean, OwnBackup is it will have paid for itself kind of tool the first time you need to use it.
Yeah.
So no, definitely appreciate you being part of this. And I did put the link, I posted the link to, if you're interested in the raffle drawing, to get your information in there. We've had a few more names trickle in. We'll give it another minute or so. And then Jeannie, if you want to run your drawing from there, I think we can call that part good.
Yeah, we'll give you guys a few more minutes if you are interested in winning yourself a pair of AirPods, OwnBackup branded. I'll give you a couple minutes. And
this was our only way of making sure that Jeannie couldn't win the raffle again, by the way. We made Jeannie the raffle prize draw compare.
Yeah. I see a few more coming in, so I'll give you guys a couple more minutes. We'll wait till 11:45.
I remember one time, maybe about a year ago, we did one of these and went through, we did the raffle, and we had like 3 winners for that one. One of them was like, I know that name. And I go and look at my internal Slack channel. I'm like, yeah, because it's one of my teammates who lives in like Nashville. But I'm like, oh, yeah, hey, I knew you. Okay, great. Congratulations. Didn't know you were coming.
Oh, listen, this will show this is live in real time. I've just received a text message from my wife saying, I'm working from home, obviously. I am locked out. Can you open the door? You'll have to excuse me for a moment whilst I go and attend to this. That's it's not quite a data emergency, but if I don't let her in, I'm going to be in trouble. So
That's a top priority.
leave you to it for a moment. Excuse me.
All right, we've got how many more seconds left?
Give it 30. I've got
30 seconds. All right. I'm tracking. Got a good wheel going.
Yeah.
And Todd has been a great advocate and great partner working with OwnBackup. You know, he's always been a huge, you know, it's funny when he talked about attending Dreamforce. I know many of you always look forward to Dreamforce. I don't know how many of you guys went to the San Francisco one this last fall, but it was a much more intimate setting. And it was great because it was so small, but you know, you can learn a lot. There's so much, you know, and this user group is a great example of how you guys come together, share ideas, talk about, you know, victories and, you know, challenges as well, and try and help each other out. So that's really, really, really great. All right, I think I'll put this last name in, and then I can. All right, going once, going twice. I think, Dale, did you enter any more after Chris?
Nope, I don't see any more.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well so you can see everybody. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
All right, here we go. All right, Fernando, you are the lucky winner of some OwnBackup AirPods. Fernando, I'm going to put my email in the chat window, and let's see. And if you want to contact me, so that you can send me your mailing address, and we can ship them out to you.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay.
Congratulations.
And
Todd,
for
I've raised
anybody
your
who's
hand.
interested in chatting more about OwnBackup, learning more, you can also contact me. I've put my email into the main window, and I can direct you to the right individual, right rep that might be that would be assigned to your account. So, okie dokie. Fernando, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
The gentleman from Connecticut has raised his hand and wishes to have the floor. Go for it, Todd. You're on mute. Still on mute.
Sorry about that. I was just trying to clap for Fernando. I wasn't raising my hand.
Gotcha. All good. Okay. Well, thank you again, OwnBackup team. I will actually go ahead and stop the recording now. We did not have